Georgia, the polls are now closed across the state, and we are tracking all of the results. Welcome in to our special runoff election night coverage right here on 11 Alive Plus. I'm Zach Merchant.
And I'm Faith Jesse, and voting across the state and here in Atlanta is now closed. We do have a team of reporters across Metro Atlanta as well as panelists here at 11 Alive ready to bring you the latest results as they come in.
First, though, let's get you up to speed with the races we are following right now. There are 4 runoff elections for mayor tonight across Metro Atlanta. Those are in East Point, Roswell, Sandy Springs, and South Fulton. We're also keeping our eye on State House District 106 that represents part of Gwinnett County.
And let's meet our panel for the next hour. If you watch the Georgia Vote, you know our panelists. The first up, Fal Sabak, the Senior Managing Director at Denton's and the former Executive Director of the Georgia House Democratic Caucus. Also joining us, returning panelist Spiro Amburn, the Senior Vice President of McGuire Woods Consulting. He has previously served as Chief of Staff for Republican House Speakers John Burns and David Ralston. Welcome, both of you, back to panel. So good to be with you here, and thank you to everyone who is joining us for our stream. We want to kick things off with your thoughts about what you all are watching. Fal, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I'm watching really the mayor's races and the all across the metro area. I'm really interested in seeing how the Democrats had a pretty successful night in November. I want to see if the momentum keeps up for this election night.
Yeah,
Spiro?
Yeah, similar. I'm particularly interested in the the turnout numbers that perhaps would measure the voter enthusiasm in these areas, and particularly when you look at Sandy Springs, for example, is one I'm watching. Rusty Paul, the kind of the longtime tenured mayor, in a runoff there, and then the couple of city council seats in the city of Atlanta. Kind of interested in the turnout and kind of seeing where those votes are coming from, and seeing if there might be some trends we can kind of look into the future and see what's going to happen in maybe some of these state legislative races.
Turnout is always the name of the game, whether it's a presidential election or a municipal race. We have a moment here. I want to ask you guys, how difficult is it when you're advising a campaign, when you're strategizing, to keep the enthusiasm and momentum up for your potential voters who just came out, cast a ballot in the general election, and now you got to re-up it all and say, hey, come back out, cast another ballot for my guy, for my gal.
And it's cold and it's raining.
And, right, and it's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving break and all that stuff. So
what I'm hearing is there's some challenges.
Yeah, there are some challenges. But I think that's part of the campaign work, right, is trying to overcome those challenges. We're kind of we're being bombarded by news 24/7. People are kind of tuned in 24/7. So I think that kind of helps the momentum. But it is definitely a little challenging.
Yeah. Spiro, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, runoffs are always going to have a lower turnout no matter what the situation. So it truly is, awareness, educating people by any means possible. And literally getting your friends and neighbors and those who you know most out to the polls.
And back to what you were saying at first, I mean, depending on the numbers, that can be a gauge on enthusiasm. If you have higher numbers than usual in these municipal races, that's a good sign that people are interested. Speaking of the numbers and speaking of turnout, we want to turn to one of the races that we are watching. That is for the mayor of South Fulton. We're taking a look at some of the early numbers coming in. We still are going to have numbers coming in all night. Keep in mind the polls just closed. So what you are taking a look at here for the most part right now are early voting numbers. Carmelita Gums, she is a current council member in the city of South Fulton, going against Mark Baker, who is a former council member. Both of them vying for the seat right now held by Khalid Kamau, also known as Mayor Kobe, who did not make this runoff. He was not even in the top 4 out of the 9 candidates who were running for this. Our reporter Angelina Salcido is covering this race for us. We are heading out to her live. Angelina, how are you feeling on the ground right now? To my understanding, you are with the Carmelita Gums party.
We are with the Carmelita Gums party tonight. She actually just walked in just a few minutes ago, said hi to everybody that was in here. A very excited atmosphere in here as they continue to watch the results come in. Just over 60, close to 6,600 votes have been cast already, and the results currently show right now that she holds about 60% of the vote. Now, we were able to speak to Carmelita Gums and Mark Baker last week about what they were interested in pursuing moving forward, should they be able to take the mayor's seat and also what they have learned from current Mayor Khalid Kamau. Take a listen to what they both had to say.
Making sure that relationships are collaborative and focused on the people. I think that is something that was missed in his tenure. I think that we truly have to start resetting the tone. Mayor Khalid, I wish him the best. But again, the voters spoke, and it's time to move forward. So
it's about unifying council. There were some things done at the beginning of his term that made things kind of divisive. But nonetheless, I'm proud and excited to say I have at least 3 people who I'll be working with on City Council who've given me a public endorsement, and there's 2 people currently in the runoff. So I see and foresee a new South Fulton moving forward.
That is something that both of them actually agree on, that we are going to see a new South Fulton come January because we need to see a change here in the city of South Fulton. We know that the city of South Fulton has dealt with its fair share of headlines in the news over the last several months with its current mayor and council. Both of them looking to change that with whoever wins moving forward. Again, Carmelita Gumbs holds 60% of the vote right now. Mark Baker holds 39%. As these results continue to come in, we'll of course bring those to you, and we'll bring you an interview from Carmelita Gumbs as well. We're live in South Fulton tonight. Angelina Salcido, 11 Alive News.
Angelina, thank you very much. That is the situation in South Fulton. We are also tracking a mayor's race in Sandy Springs. Here's the latest results we have here. And again, this is early vote totals. You see incumbent mayor there, Rusty Paul, out to an early lead, about 73% of the vote going to him at this early juncture, about 27% going to Dante Carter. In raw numbers, that's about 5,000 votes for Rusty Paul, about 1,900 for Dante Carter here. And again, though, it is early tonight. 11 Alive has reporters fanned out across the metro tracking all of the results, all of the election day information. Marissa Sarbach is in Sandy Springs right now. Marissa, what are you seeing?
Well, Zach, we're at the watch party right now for Mayor Rusty Paul, and people already are excited. So you can tell, I mean, just as soon as they're walking in the room here, one woman yelled, Mayor Paul, I think it's going to be a great night. You can see he's already just talking to some of his constituents and some of the voters that came out here earlier tonight. We're at a brunch restaurant right in the middle of Sandy Springs. Rusty Paul running on a platform focused on investing in public safety and green spaces, as well as being a champion for charter schools. He's been in office since 2013, 3 terms here. Now, his opponent, Dante Carter, his campaign focusing on diversity and inclusion, talking about building infrastructure to expand mass transit here in Sandy Springs, and also wanting accountability for women who have been victims of the crimes. Now, we know the runoff elections really don't typically draw the crowds that you're used to seeing on general election days. Of course, it is pretty busy here, but we did catch up with some voters at the polls earlier today who say they never miss an election day.
I was always voting. I became a citizen 20 years ago, and yeah, I've been always voting. We need to educate people, and I've been educating people of, you know, obviously having my citizenship and how important it is when you move to a country and you become part of that country. And so that is important to me. That's why I come and vote and share my experience with other people, and I'm very proud of that. And so I thank everybody and all the American people for welcoming me and, you know, giving me the opportunity to grow and have my own business.
Right now, live in Sandy Springs again at the watch party here tonight for Mayor Rusty Paul, one of the mayoral candidates here in Sandy Springs. Very energetic crowd out right now. And last check of those numbers, again, more than 5,000 votes for Rusty Paul and almost 2,000 for Dante Carter. Again, as you mentioned, Zach, these are just early voting numbers, but I can tell you the crowd here not really concerned about that. They expect this momentum to continue throughout the night.
So thank you very much. Let's bring our panel back in now because, guys, there's been, we should be clear, this is technically a nonpartisan race, this mayoral contest in Sandy Springs. But if you are an outside observer, you might be noticing some real partisan cross currents. We've seen Stacey Abrams endorse Dante Carter. She's, of course, the former 2-time Democratic gubernatorial nominee. Republican Governor Brian Kemp has endorsed Rusty Paul. How much does the nonpartisan label really mean in a race like this, Spiro?
I mean, I think at this point, when it comes down to the final 2, and you clearly have a Republican and a Democrat, you're going to see that happen. You're going to see the endorsements come out, and early indications are, that Rusty Paul had a pretty good get out the vote effort, and what we were talking about earlier of educating people and letting them know that there is a runoff and making sure his people got to the polls.
And Val, I mean, is this something that strategists like yourself, is this a race that people are looking at? I mean, why would a Governor Brian Kemp and a Stacey Abrams even care about backing these two candidates?
Yeah, I mean, look, like what Spiro said, you have the two kind of going up against each other. They went through a whole field of, and Sandy Springs had a number of candidates in the main election. And so when you have these people, when it's down to two people, you want your team to win at the end of the day. So that's when your people come in and start weighing in and saying, hey, like, it's kind of a signal to folks to say, listen, you need to get out and vote. These are the people who may have supported me, who may like me. This is who I need you to go support.
And I think Sandy Springs is also interesting, too, because you have a diverse voting population there. It's a city of about 100,000 people. It's not, I mean, you could say it's purple, right? I mean, there's people who, it's not completely like a red stronghold or a blue stronghold. So could we say bellwether for North Georgia or North Atlanta? Or is it not necessarily? We're just going to see what happens, and it could be an indicator.
It could be like a factor in many factors. I mean, Sandy Springs was a pretty strong Republican stronghold for a while, before when the first Trump presidency happened. And then after that, I think that's when you had the disaffected Republicans kind of start coming out to say, listen, I'm not down with what President Trump is doing. I'm going to vote for the Democrat. So I think that you still do have people that it is still pretty much a purple area.
Spiro, I want to shift gears here for a moment and talk about another mayoral contest that, at least in the general election, was very close. We're talking about Roswell here. Back in November, Kurt Wilson, the incumbent mayor, who was endorsed by Governor Brian Kemp, we should mention here, and his challenger, Mary Robichaux, former state legislator, they were separated by less than 200 votes. Very close in the general. Do you expect this to be another very close race here? And Spiro, we should point out here too, we're seeing some early results from tonight. You see the challenger, Mary Robichaux, out to an early lead, about 58% of the vote to her, 42% of the vote to incumbent Kurt Wilson. Again, these are early, but Spiro, you see these numbers, you think about the dynamics at play, what jumps out at you?
Yeah, I mean, she's got a pretty strong lead at this point. I'd like to know exactly where those precincts are, if there are areas where, Mayor Wilson, there could be areas where he's very strong, that we're not seeing come in yet. But clearly this is a race that's closer than the Sandy Springs race.
Are runoffs in some ways their own beast, like a totally new election?
Yes and no. And
you can say no. You're not going to tell me it was a dumb question.
I think they, again, I think they're about truly getting out your base and the people who know you best. You're not going to convince a whole lot of people, and change a lot of opinions because the turnout is going to be a little bit lower anyway. You really have to focus on being yourself, making sure your voters, show up if they didn't vote the first time. And I think with this past election, you may have had a lot of people who did not vote the first time, and the PSC races could have woken a lot of people, up, the result of that with the attention that it got. You could have seen a lot of Republicans say, oh, wait a minute, I do need to show up and go out and vote. So I think that probably helped Rusty Paul. We'll have to see how the Roswell mayor situation plays out, but these are both areas that are battlegrounds, particularly when you look at 26.
I'm interested too in Roswell. Obviously, that's a very niche topic for those who live there, but a very big deal for those who live there. You have the growth candidate and the incumbent mayor, and then the preservationist, the former state representative here. The Mimosa Hall project, where all of the trees were taken down, a huge uproar in this, and Robichaux really came after the incumbent mayor on that. I mean, that was, I would say, one of the defining moments for this campaign. Once again, very kind of small, zooming into one neighborhood, but when we're taking kind of like a statewide approach, how do these issues, this is almost like a preservationist issue, how could that play up in the midterm elections? Could candidates kind of key into these issues that seem small to the broader picture, but really make a big difference if you're living in that neighborhood?
I mean, I think it depends on what race, right? But I mean, you know, everybody says politics is local, which
the
is
words
true.
out of my mouth.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that there is a chance where people can say, and it might not be specifically on the issue. It might just be the sentiment of I'm not content, or I'm not happy with the direction that my town is going or my city is
You're
going.
not listening to
You're
me.
not listening to me, and I think that that's where the candidates can come in 2026 and kind of take advantage either one way or another.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, we know in these areas, you know, Sandy Springs, Roswell, you know, Gwinnett, you know, North Fulton, those are going to be the battlegrounds for the state house and state senate races where you have swing districts. And then when you get statewide elections the margins may be very close, those are where these local issues could flip a House seat one way or another, depending on those flashpoints, for example.
And it always makes me too wonder, Zach, are the candidates that are running these statewide races, are they paying attention to what issues voters are voting on, such as all the trees that were cut down in Roswell?
I would bet, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would bet that anybody who's involved in a statewide campaign right now is watching very closely anytime any voter goes to the ballot box. Any iota of data would help in a big way or a small way inform strategy going into this pivotal midterm year. Agree, disagree?
Agree.
I agree with
Probably
that.
watching pretty closely too.
Yes.
On that note, guys, there's so much more to talk about. We're going to go to a brief break. The good news is we will continue to talk about all of it right on the other side. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It is 8:18. Welcome back into our streaming coverage of the Tuesday runoff and the November elections. Of course, it's December, but these are runoff races from the November election. Our panel joining us now, and we are continuing to talk about some of the big races that we are watching for mayor, lots of different district seats, and we right now want to look at some of the results coming in. Right now we have results coming in for East Point Mayor. You can see Keisha Chapman is leading this race right now. It's 65% of the vote. Joshua Butler behind her right now at 35% of the vote. But keep in mind, just 8:19 here, we are looking at early numbers as these numbers are still coming in. Another race that we are watching right now is the Atlanta Board of Education, seat 8 at large. This is a race that anybody in the city of Atlanta could vote for. Casey Brock currently leading with 55% of the vote, and Royce Mann 44% of the vote. Fausta Block-Spiro Amburn joining us for our panel here. Let's start off with that East Point mayor race. Looking at that, any thoughts from that, or once again, the APS seat-at-large race, a Atlanta citywide race? Fal.
Look, I think again, like you look at the turnout numbers, it's we were speaking earlier about the general election and the turnout numbers and how it's kind of like an echo at this point of the November elections. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, whichever candidate comes out on top. I mean, really, kudos to them because they really had a number of challenges that they had to overcome to be able to win the seat.
And Spiro, I want to ask you a question about a point you made earlier. You're a Republican strategist. You said earlier that the results of the Public Service Commission races, where we saw 2 incumbent Republicans get their seats flipped by 2 Democratic challengers, you said those results may have been a wake-up call to some Republican voters to go out and cast a ballot in these runoffs. Could it also be a wake-up call or an energizing call to some Democratic voters who saw that and think, yeah, let's keep going?
Yeah, I think that is what makes this particular runoff in these municipal elections unique, is the fact that you did have the PSC on the ballot, which was kind of like a, you know, I call it like a sleeping giant, but I don't know what the best analogy is, but you had so many people that weren't really aware of that race and didn't even know what the PSC is, and then all of a sudden you have the fallout and the stories after the fact and those Democratic wins. So yeah, I think that cuts both ways. But I do think when you're on the losing side of that, it tends to energize you a little bit more. It's a wake-up call.
And we saw those comments coming out from Republicans really nationwide that night because they felt that, you know what, maybe we need to do something here. I do want to get back to that APS seat-at-large race, just because here in Atlanta, schooling is a very big deal. We know that whoever wins this seat, whether it be Casey Brock or Royce Mann, they are going to be influential when it comes to budget. They are going to be influential when it comes to literacy rates. Pulling up the stats right here, we know that Casey Brock endorsed by Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, Royce Mann getting an endorsement by former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin, both of them very bright candidates, both of them graduates of APS schools as well. Casey Brock, an educator, Royce Mann, a little bit younger. He graduated, I can't remember the exact year that he graduated, but he is in his 20s. But both of them vying for this seat. When it comes to the issue of education, we know that there's a lot of parents. How important is the issue of education? And it seems like kind of like a common sense question, but how important is that for the candidates?
Oh, it's incredibly important. I mean, you are entrusting your kids to these people who are making decisions for their education that's going to essentially be the foundation to set them up for the rest of their life. And so, you know, the city of Atlanta, you were talking about, you know, former teacher and then, you know, both APS students. But I mean, I think that might have played a part in what we're seeing tonight is sometimes City of Atlanta, I think that they want to see something with a little bit more stability. They want to see something, you know, especially in education. It might be a little tougher to hand the reins over to somebody who is fresh, bright, new ideas. It might be a little harder for that.
And you're also seeing really kind of like a generational shift because Casey Brock is a millennial. Royce Mann, maybe he's a zillennial, maybe Gen Z, but both younger candidates, you know? We're not seeing what we're seeing in D.C. right now,
right.
with the majority of Congress. But you are seeing this shift. You are seeing this shift, Spiro. How does that speak to just how campaigning is going?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, school board is the toughest job in politics, in my opinion. I mean, my dad was on the school board when I was growing up for about 12 years. I mean, you're very close to the people. I mean, you get the phone calls, most of them not good because people don't call you about the good things. But anyone who runs for those positions, I mean, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with them, they're going to be passionate about whatever it is, you know, that
especially when you talk about your
kids to them. So absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see how these races play out. I think there's still a lot of returns still to come in, particularly in the city of Atlanta, just because of the sheer volume of votes. Those are going to be a little bit later coming in.
And Spiro and Hal, to maybe underscore the point everyone's making here, and the fact that people are passionate about their kids' education, they're passionate about what is taught and how it is taught. If you look back at the November elections, the general election, this at-large seat by far had the most ballots cast. Most of these runoff races we're seeing back in the November general, the 2 top vote getters split something in the neighborhood of 10 to 20,000 votes. This at-large seat, the 2 top vote getters, they got about 60,000 votes. So 3 times as much as most other races. People are paying attention, they care. The turnout question is going to be how many of those 60,000 come back out tonight. But that is not the only race we're watching. Let's run through some results here. We're talking about the mayoral race. Let's start there in Roswell. We're seeing Mary Robichaux still out to that about 58% to 42% lead over incumbent Kurt Wilson. And this is one of those races we saw, it's technically nonpartisan, but we saw that kind of partisan streak come in. Governor Brian Kemp, the Republican, endorsing incumbent Kurt Wilson. These are still early results. We're going to see how this shakes out as the evening progresses. It's not the only mayor's race we're tracking, though, tonight. So let's keep floating through these results graphics. Here's the Sandy Springs mayoral contest, one of the other big races we're watching tonight. Still early votes. This is a different story than what we're seeing early in Roswell, though. You see incumbent Mayor Rusty Paul, who has a history in Republican politics. He got that endorsement from Governor Brian Kemp, out to about a 73% to 27% lead over Dante Carter, the challenger, who has a long history in Democratic politics. He got the endorsement from Stacey Abrams. Let's look at South Fulton, the city of South Fulton next. Whoever wins this race, they will be a brand new mayor for the city of South Fulton. The current mayor, Khalid Kamau, did not qualify for this runoff. He failed to come in first or second in a crowded general election field back in November. We see Carmelita Gums leading here very early, about 61% of the vote to 39% to Mark Baker. Guys, this is going to be a tough tee-up potentially. We're a little short on time, but we should dwell on the city of South Fulton for a moment here. Fal, the city of South Fulton, we saw both of the runoff candidates in an interview earlier tonight talk about, in one way or another, they were framing it as trying to restore trust, restore confidence in the city government there. They've been through some ups and downs in the city's young history as a city. How big of a challenge will it be for whoever wins this race to actually accomplish that goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fact that they're even addressing that it's going to take them a minute and it's going to take them a concerted effort to try to win the trust of the voters, I think is a great start. I mean, I think I think that they can do it. I think they have to be transparent. I think they have to, just like how they get out on the campaigns, when they get into office, they have to get out and talk to the people. They have to make themselves known, know their agenda, tell people what's going on so that they can restore the trust.
And it's really interesting looking at this race too, because Carmelita Gums, she was one of the current mayor, Khalid Kamau's most outspoken critics, even on his inauguration day down there in South Fulton. He has been in the headlines. They have been in the headlines, even with their interviews post-election and the ones that we've talked to them. They don't want to be in the headlines for the bad stuff. They want to be in the headlines for the good stuff. Looking at the numbers from November, she, and I have it pulled up here, she led with about 39%. Baker came in second at 19%. But the mayor, he didn't even get 5% of the vote. So the people spoke. They said what they wanted to say. Spiro, I want to bring you in here. We're looking at South Fulton, but just kind of bird's eye view here. When you're dealing with an incumbent mayor who's no longer in the picture, what does that look like for these two candidates vying for the runoff, going against each other then?
Well, clearly the incumbent mayor was not very popular, so they're not seeking. It's all about change, really. I mean,
both of them are now change candidates.
Right. South Fulton's an area that, again, relatively new city, clearly going through growing pains and probably an identity crisis, or what do we want to be for the future. You know, it's a unique area of the metro. You got still a lot of like rural areas and farms there, and you have the growth, the proximity to the airport. It's a it's a very unique situation, which makes for some interesting politics. And so I would imagine that, you're going to want to campaign on having a vision for planning for the growth and the change around you and trying to protect whatever integrity you have as a community, which I think you're seeing both candidates vie for.
And really kind of making a defining moment for the community, because South Fulton was incorporated, 2017? So it has not even been a city for 10 years yet. So
it is a young city, and there has been an explosion of them in recent years in Georgia. It takes an act of the legislature to make it happen, and we saw a lot of them pop up. Guys, we're going to continue this conversation in just a moment. We're going to go to a quick break here. We'll be right back in just a moment. Stay with us. welcome back into our extended edition of the Georgia Vote of 11 Alive's election night coverage right here on 11 Alive Plus, and we continue to track at 8:31, almost 8:32 tonight. Continue to track in real time election results that are coming in. Let's take you now to the results in Sandy Springs, where we see a contest between incumbent Mayor Rusty Paul and challenger Dante Carter. Here are the latest numbers that we have, but they're still early numbers. These are from about 7:15 tonight. That's the latest batch of results we have seen. So take a look, pay attention to it, but don't think this is final by any means. You see Rusty Paul at about 73% of the tally here, Dante Carter at about 27%. 11 Alive's Marissa Sarbach is in Sandy Springs. She is at the Mayor Rusty Paul election night watch party. And Marissa, you just spoke to the mayor not long ago.
I did, Zach, and he's feeling great. Obviously, he knows these are early voting numbers as well, but he says he feels like things are heading in the right direction. Things are trending in the right direction. And we're standing at that watch party, and I will tell you, the room is completely full, completely crowded. I'm having to hold the microphone close just because everybody is so loud here and so excited to be out. They feel like this is a victory party. We did have a chance to speak with the candidate, Mayor Rusty Paul, just a few moments ago, and take a listen to what he said tonight.
The early numbers look really, really good. The early voting, we're at 73% roughly. We're tabulating the rest of the numbers as they come in, and many of the other precincts we've received are similar in number. So I feel really good about where we are. It's still a little early to declare victory, but people are in a jubilant mood around here right now. They like the numbers they're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed one woman walked right in and she yelled, "It's going to be a good night, Mayor."
Well, it has been. You know, this is a great community. They care deeply about the city and the community. This is, and it's about the shared vision that we've had for over 20 years.
And Paul running on a platform focused on investing in public safety and green spaces, as well as being a champion for charter schools. His opponent, local business owner Dante Carter, focused more on diversity and inclusion, building infrastructure that he wanted to expand to mass transit here in Sandy Springs, and also accountability for women who have been victims of crimes. Of course, as we said, Zach, these are still early numbers, but the Rusty campaign feeling very good here at that watch party here in Sandy Springs. We actually checked in with Dante Carter's campaign, and they are not holding a watch party. Otherwise, we would have checked that one out as well. But for right now, here at the Sandy Springs watch party, we also did speak with Rusty about the endorsement that he received from Governor Kemp. He was very thankful for that, nodding along as we addressed that. We've seen that on social media for the last few days. So those kinds of endorsements and that national attention, he feels will really help, as well as the support from those local residents that went out to the polls and voted until really just at the wire at 7 o'clock tonight, really, at the public library over in Sandy Springs. We saw people going out to cast their ballots.
Marissa Sarbach joining us live from the headquarters of Rusty Paul. A lot of excitement in that room right now. Marissa, thank you so much. You know, it's interesting. He mentioned it, the city's 20-year history. He is the second mayor. He helped with the incorporation to make it a city. He's obviously very well known. He has a lot of power. He's in a lot of big circles. Spiro, I want to bring you in here. Is this an election of an established person versus not only just a change candidate, but a diversity candidate, somebody who almost wants to bring new flair to Sandy Springs? Do you see it as that or something different?
Possibly. I mean, I think we have the kind of the opposite situation in Sandy Springs than we do in, say, South Fulton, a relatively new city. Like we said earlier, going through growing pains. And in Sandy Springs, we have a situation where there's been a lot of stability. And Rusty Paul mentioned it, shared vision. And Sandy Springs has done a great job with their planning and growth. And sure, he's been in there, 3-4 terms.
This will be his fourth if he wins tonight.
So yeah, I think, I guess to your question, anytime you've been in office for multiple terms, you know, you're going to have folks who won't change, regardless of how things are going. New direction, young energy, diversity. So certainly I think that was a theme of his opponent. But you know, it doesn't seem to have gotten much traction, you know, based on the early results. So I think that, you know, the people of Sandy Springs have probably acknowledged that that stability right now and the track record that they have of leadership is what has gotten them to this point at a pretty good place.
So you're saying the people are saying if it's not broke, don't fix it?
Pretty much.
And it is, we should point out too, when we talk about the city of South Fulton and Sandy Springs, the city of South Fulton is a much younger city too. Sandy Springs incorporated in about 2005, if I recall correctly. City of South Fulton, 2017. So you get that a decade plus. That is a difference, especially when we're talking about a short timeline. Val, I want to ask you about incumbency. We have seen waves, particularly at the national level, where incumbency can be a hindrance to some candidates. We've seen these waves of real political outsider excitement where incumbents either retire before facing a challenge or they lose, sometimes in a primary. Is the situation a little different when you talk about local races, municipal races? Does incumbency carry more sway at the ballot box there?
Yeah, I think even on any level, incumbency does carry a decent amount of sway. I think what we're seeing now there's a difference of incumbency and are you making sure that our community is going, like you just said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Or is it incumbency and, you know, you just aren't doing anything? And so I think that that's really the differentiation. And I think, you know, if you drive through Sandy Springs on any given day, I mean, they're always constructing something new. They're building up very quickly. And so I think that incumbency helps, but the type of incumbent you are matters very much.
And also, just to remind the viewers, this is not the first time we've seen this matchup. Dante Carter was trying to unseat Mr. Paul back in 2021. So this is kind of a rematch right now, still early numbers, but he has a significant lead. Right now, we want to take a look at the numbers from the city of South Fulton again. Carmelita Gumbs still on top here with 61% of the vote. Mark Baker at 39%. Zach, do we know when these numbers were last updated? I just want to make sure that we are staying on top of that. 7:15. So
still 7:15. Yeah, we should be getting another batch of results at some point soon.
If you're at home wondering, these numbers haven't changed, that's why.
We are waiting right along with you. So we are in this together. Another person who is in it together with us is Angelina Salcido. She is live right now in the city of South Fulton. Angelina, what are you seeing there?
So we are at Councilwoman Gumbs' watch party, and she walked in here close to our first hit when we were first speaking to you guys beforehand. And so Carmelita Gumbs right now is currently talking to her constituents, talking to the voters that have supported her, but also sitting down to eat actually with her family. She says that this has been a very long race, very long process for her, but she is so happy to be here tonight and just excited to be able to celebrate, honestly, is what she's calling it, with everybody else. They are viewing this more as a celebration than them waiting to see results come in. Currently right now, you guys see that she has 60 to 61% of the vote. Mark Baker has 39% of the vote. They were the top two candidates in this runoff election back on November 4th. There were 9 candidates that were vying for the mayoral seat here in the city of South Fulton. Mayor Khalid Kamal, also known as Mayor Kobe, was one of those people. He actually did not even make the runoff because he didn't pull enough results. Now, when we talk about the city of South Fulton, you know, they have been a city that has been in headlines, for news headlines, for several months now. Councilmember Gumbs has been on the council that has been trying to right the ship and create transparency in the city over the last several months. One of the things that we talked to both candidates about was public safety, because both of them are running on a platform where they want to create a city that is safer here in South Fulton. I want you to hear what they have to say needs to happen moving forward should they take the seat of mayor.
We have to have leadership in our police department. You have 115,000 residents over 107 square miles, you know, without leadership right now. And I think it's detrimental to our city. And, you know, we're very vulnerable as a municipality. And that's going to be one of the things that I get with the city manager and council and acknowledge on day one.
As we move forward, we're needing to, you know, seek new leadership. We have a very strong public administrator, public safety administrator right now that's overseeing a lot of things that are happening in our police and fire. I'm looking forward to his continued leadership and also being able to help us recommend whatever recommendations to improve the officers, you know, workplace, their morale. You know.
Now you hear Councilmember Gumbs talking about the public safety director that they currently have in place right now. That person was put in place after the chief was put on leave after 3 different lawsuits were filed in the city of South Fulton, and the council voted to put him on paid administrative leave pending a review. Both of these candidates want to see how this review comes out in order to know how things will move on moving forward, but they both agree that if the chief needs to step down, that's something that they would like to see. They just want things to be transparent with the public and with their officers moving forward, so then that way they can right the ship here. So as the night continues, we're obviously going to be talking to Councilmember Gumbs when she has some free time. We're also going to be trying to check in with Baker's camp as well to see how things are going with them. But right now we have 60 to 61% of the vote for Carmelita Gumbs and about 39% of the vote for Mark Baker as these results continue to come in tonight, guys.
Angelina Salcido live in the city of South Fulton. Angelina, thank you very much. Let's bring in our panel here. Spiro Amber, Republican strategist, Fal Sabak, Democratic strategist, both veteran political analysts on the Georgia vote, back again for feels like another election night. We're so glad you're
like
here.
Number 10.
Yeah, and it just keeps going. And we're so glad you're here if you're watching us. You've probably been along for this journey before. I want to ask you guys both something. Something in Angelina's live report there caught my ear. You're both savvy veteran political strategists. She mentioned that Carmelita Gumbs was sitting down with her family. She said, hey, I can't do an interview right now because I've got to sit with my family and have something to eat. When you talk about politics, when you cover politics, it can be easy to think of these people as just the candidates. But they're real people, too. Fal, when you're advising a candidate, when you get built up and all the excitement to hit that general election, and then you got to say, hey, we're going to a runoff. We got to do this all over again. What are the dynamics inside those campaign strategy sessions, just person to person? How challenging is it to get up and do it again?
There's a lot of fatigue because, like you said, it feels like we've been having an election like every month at this point. But I think that part of it is, if you're on the strategist side or the staff side, is to kind of help that candidate kind of push through that last bit of the race, right? And it's kind of just like, you just got to sprint one more time and you just got to go through that ribbon. And so I think that that's really you just got to encourage them to keep going. You know, you have good data from the general election that you can use for the runoff. But I mean, it is taxing. It is very taxing. I mean, there's a lot of times where you forget to eat, you forget to, you know, whatever, you're losing sleep, and then...
So it's not just us.
It's not just us. That's right. It's not just us.
You know, you talk about you got good data from the general. Spiro, is it, in some ways, when you're in this kind of runoff situation, is it part data crunching and pure analysis and part person-to-person coaching?
Well, yeah, you find out real quick that they are real people when you're a staff person, particularly when you're making their schedule, you know, telling them where to be and when to be, and that's.
I'd imagine that can be a challenging job at times.
They don't like that very much, and you know, everybody's tired. You know, you're fatigued at the end of the first round. I mean, the closest analogy I can think of is like a ball game, you know, going to extra innings or overtime. You know, you've just fought so hard, and then the clock hits 0, but yet you have to go another quarter or another, you know, to decide it. And that's where you really have to dig deep. The staff have to dig deep. The candidate has to find, you know, that extra reserve of energy. And you got to look at the data, see where we did good, where our weaknesses are. And again, it's about getting those people back out that voted for you the first time. And if you see that the turnout was low in a particular area, you have to focus on making sure that, you know, you get those percentages up where your strengths are.
I have a question for both of you, just kind of taking a look at this race. Not necessarily a unique situation, unique for this go-round of runoffs, because you have an incumbent mayor who clearly was not too popular with his constituents because he got just under 5% of the vote in November. And then, like I said, all of the different news headlines when it comes to money and travel and spending. What does the accountability look like for the successor? Because whoever wins this race is still going to have to answer to what has happened in the last 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that is going to be like almost like a self-correction at that point, where it's like the candidate is going to step up and say, I'm not what my predecessor was. I'm going to go above and beyond to make sure that everything is out in the open. What I'm doing, what I'm spending on is XYZ. So I think you'll see some of that kind of self-correction happening.
And I should also say Mayor Kobe has said that he believed that all of this bad press was political in nature. He's not here to defend himself.
Right.
But Spiro, do you agree with Fal that if you're inheriting something that, you know, maybe the numbers are off or there's a lot of disagreements, how do you move forward from that, especially when it comes to establishing trust and transparency?
Yeah, I think anytime you come into a situation like that where you're inheriting a bad situation, I mean, you're going to be judged by that, by the voters, and you're going to be accountable for doing things differently. And it's important to, from the very beginning, set forth a vision on how and articulate, how you're going to make changes and be transparent about that, as
And then
Fal
actually
said.
follow through, right?
Is it also, Fal, in some ways indicative of the fact that people really do pay attention? It's so easy, I think, and I mean, I certainly can put my curmudgeon hat on sometimes and think, I'm looking at my phone too much, I'm not paying attention to the real world. And but you see, in a race like this, there were a lot of headlines coming out, there was a lot of stuff in the news, and voters, it seems, heard that, watched that, read that, and made a decision based off of it, made a different direction for the city. Is it indicative that people, particularly these municipal races, really are paying attention to very hyper-local issues?
Yeah, I think so, and I think you can also make an argument for South Fulton. It's a newer city, and so you have a voting population that's already engaged, already paying attention, seeing what's going on. So I think that I mean, I think people pay attention, especially when you're seeing headline after headline of malfeasance happening, and I think that kind of sticks with somebody to say like, oh, maybe I don't want this for my
headlines.
city.
Think about money.
Yeah,
it's
that too.
impacting property taxes or things, safety, things like that. Like you don't
Education.
necessarily have to be tuned into. You should be tuned into the news every Sunday at 11. But those real life impacts really affect you as well.
Guys, on that note, we're going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back and do this. It is 8:50 in Atlanta when we continue to track live election results on this runoff election eve. Let's go to the city of Stonecrest. We've got City Council Post 5 here. These are unofficial results, but complete results. These are unofficial results, but complete results. 51% of the vote going to Carmisha Washington Smith, 49% going to Tammy Grimes. That is a separation between the two of 11 votes. If those results hold, again, they're unofficial, but if they hold as is, That means that the incumbent, Tammy Grimes, is unseated by 11 votes. Razor close race there in Stonecrest. Let's go to Duluth. Here's City Council Post 3. Again, unofficial results, but all the votes are tallied here. Lamar Doss, 72% of the vote in. Marlene Tucker with 28% of the vote. Low turnout affairs in both of these city council races. Guys, let's bring our
11 votes.
11 votes.
Wow.
Let's bring our panel back in here. Democratic strategist Val Sabak, Republican strategist Spiro Amburn. 11 votes, guys. That's about as close as it can get. I heard some wows as we were reading. I heard you guys. I mean, when you see that as a strategist, what do you think?
Wow. So that's one thing. You think wow. But you know, this is, you've been seeing closer and closer margins in races for the past few cycles. I mean, if you look at the mayor of Marietta, the incumbent won by about 87 votes.
Wow.
And so
That's
these
right.
races are getting tighter and tighter. So it's very interesting. It really does, from a campaign standpoint, does make you really need to push through the end of it, because it's like, you got 11 votes. That's 11. That's like maybe 2 or 3 households that you knocked on.
Exactly. Those close races are hard to, you know, it's a bitter pill to swallow when you're on the losing end of that, and you don't want to be at the end of the night thinking, man, I wish I had called this person or knocked on that door. You know, you want to leave it all on the field.
I mean, like you said, in that Marietta race, I mean, that was so close, a very young candidate trying to unseat that mayor. And Spiro, I want to ask you too, I mean, can that also be an indicator for campaigns to make that extra phone call, to knock
absolutely.
on that door?
Yeah, there's plenty of examples you can point to, you know, as a campaign manager or strategist, to say, okay, look at this race, you can clearly see, you know, if we had done more here, then we've gotten a different result. So a lot of times you can use that as motivation.
Yeah. If we can pull up some other numbers, we have not spoken much about the Atlanta City Council seats. I wanted to bring up District 7 and District 11 if we can. We're going to get those numbers up for you soon. But District 7 in Buckhead, Thomas Worthy going against Thad Flowers. That is an open seat race. You can see right now Thomas Worthy on top with about 56% of the vote. Thad Flowers with 44% of the vote, 136 votes. A difference there.
Still, and we should point out, still early in Fulton County. This is still from that early batch of results reported at about 7:15 this evening, so an hour and a half ago. We are actively waiting, just along with you in real time, for whenever this next round of, this next batch of results comes out of Fulton County.
That's right. And now we're taking a look at the results from District 11. Keep in mind this is an open seat because Marcy Collier Overstreet, this was her old seat. She is now the City Council President-elect. And we see that Wayne Martin has 61% of the vote there. Nate Jester at 39% of the vote so far. Those numbers could change soon here as Fulton County gets those results to us. But 2 open seats in this city council race. Both of you all are in Atlanta quite a bit, not necessarily on the city level, but under that big gold dome. But just kind of looking at the city level, these open seats here, I mean, a big opportunity for these campaigns anytime you have an open seat. Val.
Oh yeah, I mean, we talked about this earlier about the power of incumbency, right? When you don't have the incumbent coming in to, you know, have that I next to their name. I mean, it's really an open battle at that point.
And whoever takes these seats, they're going to have a lot to take care of in the city of Atlanta in this new year. You've got the World Cup coming in 2026. You've got national politics that are flirting with really impacting what's happening in the city of Atlanta. The city council is going to be called upon to handle some big topics in this coming year. Spiro, how much are these candidates thinking about that on a night like this and many nights ago when they were thinking about entering this race in the first place?
Oh yeah, I think that's the primary thing that they're thinking about. You've got different areas of the city that have different challenges, but at the same time, like you said, there are, citywide, whether it be the big events that are coming, infrastructure issues, transportation, transit in particular. Thomas Worthy's running, and he has been on the MARTA board, so I think that's an issue that's important to him. So I'm kind of interested to see how that race plays out.
It's going to be really interesting, too, in Atlanta. Both of you all spend quite a bit of time in Atlanta, so let me ask you this. What do you think is one of the biggest infrastructure projects that the city council is going to have to weigh in on the next year? Obviously, the World Cup is really big,
Right.
but just wondering what you all think as you work, live, and play in Atlanta.
Okay, I'll throw one out there. I mean, the airport is always there and undergoing constant innovation and change, and I know that there are projects that are, in the works there to continue to possibly even expand the airport again. So that's always going to be the center of Atlanta's transportation infrastructure and certainly transit too.
These are perpetual issues in the city of Atlanta. The people who will be helping to make the decisions in the future of all these elements, along with the leaders in the city of Atlanta, are going to be the legislators under the Gold Dome at the state capitol. Let's go to some results now. There was a special election runoff, the State House District 106. This is representing parts of Gwinnett County. These are unofficial results, but at this point, unofficially, 100% of the votes are now in. Democrat Muhammad Akbar Ali taking this race unofficially with about 55% of the vote to Marcus Cole's 45% of the vote. Low turnout affair here, less than 2,000 ballots cast total in this race. The margin, about 150 votes. Val, you were talking about this. The margins are close. Again, these are low turnout affairs, but you've got to think, Spiro, you alluded to this, you've got to think, boy, if I knocked on one extra door a day for a month, is that the kind of thing that just keeps you up at night as a strategist?
Probably for like a week or two, yeah.
And then it's on to the next thing?
Yeah, and then it's on to the next thing. But look, I mean, I think that's something, like Spiro said earlier, you do want to leave it all out on the field. You don't want to end up going to bed on election night being like, we should have called this person, or we should have gone to this meeting, or we should have done X, Y, Z. So it's the margins are getting smaller, and those, especially the metro suburban areas, the margins have always been a little closer on the state house level since I would say probably like 2017, and so they've been a little tighter, and so that seat was a little tight. It was a safe Democratic seat. Akbar had the endorsement of the former state representative who held that seat, former Representative Shelley Hutchinson. So and he's all over social media,
And speaking of social media, I mean, it really speaks to kind of this generational shift, Spiro. I'll bring you in here too. If Ali is elected, he would be the youngest person to serve under the Gold Dome. I believe he's 21 right now. I actually sat down with him, I believe, last year. He was still a student at Kennesaw State University, grew up in Gwinnett. And I mean, he's young. He's a grown man, right? He is clearly taking the lead right here, unofficial votes. But it's speaking to a shift, Spiro. A 21-year-old under that Gold Dome. Like, how could that shake things up?
Well, we've had them before. It's rare, but I mean, it does happen, and it does bring a different perspective to the General Assembly. So, yeah, I mean, I think this particular race is probably one, as Val said, it's a solidly Democratic seat. So, looking at trends, that's probably more internal in terms of Democratic politics. I don't think there was a city election in this particular House race, so turnout obviously very, very low. But I think looking at the demographic factors and having someone as young as this, certainly makes a statement.
How much, you guys mentioned that Ali had the endorsement of the state legislator who previously occupied this seat. We've talked throughout the night as well about Governor Brian Kemp endorsing in a couple mayoral races, Stacey Abrams endorsing in the Sandy Springs mayoral contest. Val, how much do endorsements move the needle in a race like this, in races like this?
Not to give a very annoying answer, but it depends, right?
When I was in law school, I heard a lot of attorneys say that.
Yes. So, yeah, it depends. If the incumbent was popular, out in the community, has a good connection with folks, good network, it can help because they can help that new candidate tap into their network. If it's just like an endorsement in name only, that might not necessarily move the needle very, very far.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a case-by-case basis. Sometimes endorsements can actually hurt.
I was
You know,
exactly.
I mean, sometimes your local voters don't like the statewide politicians coming in and saying you should vote for this person, but sometimes it does carry weight.
And if they make the endorsement, and then what if something happens with the person that made that endorsement, or a shift? I mean, we're seeing that on the national level, the statewide level. Some people concerned, okay, do I want to get this close to this candidate? Because in a year, are the voters, the constituents, going to be happy with that candidate or not happy with that candidate? Things that we've seen in the past. We do want to run through the numbers right now, just to give you all an overview of what we are seeing, starting with Roswell mayor numbers in with Mary Robichaud. She is still taking the lead here, 58% of the vote. Incumbent Kurt Wilson at 42% of the vote. Zach, we also have some results from Sandy Springs, a race that we've been talking about all night.
We have been, and not just us, a lot of people in the political ecosystem and certainly people in Sandy Springs have been paying attention to this race, and a rematch of the last mayoral contest back in 2021. Again, these are results from about 7:15 tonight. We are waiting right along with you for the next iteration, the next kind of release of a batch of results from Fulton County here. But Sandy Springs there, Rusty Paul, the incumbent, out to an early lead. Carmelita Gums here now in the city of South Fulton. 61% of the vote in her category right now at this early juncture. Mark Baker at about 39% of the results. And we're looking at another one here, another mayoral contest
That's
here
right,
in East
East
Point.
Point Mayor Keisha Chapman at 65% of the vote. Joshua Butler at 35%. We're bringing back our panel here as we continue to monitor these numbers. We are expecting some more votes to come in here as we continue to get those numbers from Fulton County. But just taking a bird's eye view, really just at this entire night, a lot of these races are very niche, very, most of the people that are paying close attention to them are the people that are living in those neighborhoods, correct? And we had talked about this earlier, but I just want to bring it up again because you have some small issues when you're talking about transportation, when you're talking about safety, when you're talking about schooling and funding. What would you say is the number one issue for most voters right now within all of these races? And I know that it might differ per race, but if you're just talking about, and I'm trying to kind of juxtapose this to looking ahead to the midterms.
Well, I think this round was a little bit more localized. The November general election was really about affordability. You heard that kind of in and out of every campaign. After the PSC races, I mean, people are still talking about it, and you have noticed the candidates for 2026 kind of not necessarily shifting, but maybe incorporating affordability more into their platforms. But I think that these, because they're super localized races, you really have seen them kind of break down into the more
Beyond
local
affordability.
issues. Yeah.
Okay.
You talk about that issue of affordability, though, and we certainly heard it going into the PSC race, too, and we heard it back in 2024, the presidential election. But I can, to echo your point, we sat down with 4 or 5 of the top gubernatorial candidates a week or so after that PSC race, Republicans and Democrats. Affordability, affordability, affordability. Everybody was talking about it just about as much as possible. Spiro, is that going to be the story going into the new year?
I think so. I think it is. I think taxes, whether it be property taxes or income taxes, and obviously the city doesn't have a whole lot to do with that, maybe when it comes to some of your local taxes. But, I do think the issues are different with each city. I'm really interested by this, the Roswell and Sandy Springs outcomes, 2 neighboring cities. One incumbent mayor appears to be winning convincingly, and perhaps the other not. So it's going to be interesting to see what the reasons are for that, like we've been talking about. I think that, it's a case-by-case basis.
Really taking a look at that. We do have some fully reported, unofficial results, but numbers that we want to take a look at here. This is up in Marietta, the City Council Ward 3. Daniel Goddess, 64%. Nora Gaudet at 36% there. My apologies if I'm mispronouncing those last names. We do have Marietta Council Ward 5, Carlisle Kent. 80% of the vote. We have a check mark there. Are we declaring that, or is that an unofficial result? Unofficial result, but he is the unofficial winner, so that's why you see that check mark there. Reggie Copeland falling with 20%. So we are not declaring this race, but this is an unofficial result. A major margin right there. So you're seeing that white check mark. So numbers out of Marietta, still waiting on some numbers out of Fulton County, but we are coming to a close here on the stream, and we have been speaking a little over an hour now from all of these different races. And the runoff, for those watching, if you're just joining us, just a quick little history lesson. The reason we have these runoffs is because none of these candidates made 50% in November, so of course they have to go, and we are seeing these head-to-head matchups. As we come to a close here, we want to just get you all's last thoughts, anything sticking out to you. I know there's so much. There's so much.
Perhaps the first time we have had two political strategists, two partisans at our table, momentarily stumped. Rub the crystal ball for us. Look ahead to the year of 2026. It's midterms year. We've got big statewide races here in Georgia. It's not just the House races. We've got a Senate race. We've got a governor's race, attorney general, lieutenant governor. I bet you anything, all the teams are watching these races. Is the pressure ratcheting up on those campaigns already? How do they incorporate whatever data they get out of this?
They're already doing that, and I think certainly they're going to be looking for trends. They're going to be looking at where the turnout numbers are highest, which voters are more enthusiastic, looking for wedge issues. They're going to be looking for any advantage they can find in 26.
Val, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with what Spiro said. I mean, they have to be paying attention very closely to the numbers. Again, we're playing in a game of inches at this point, and every vote counts. I mean, we saw it in the 2020 presidential election where President Joe Biden won by like 12,000 votes, and so that was on a statewide scale is not really a lot of votes. And so I think what Spiro said, they're going to be looking at the numbers, they're going to be looking at the issues, and you know they should be looking at who is engaged now, because next year is going to be so much more energy, so many more resources coming into the state, and making sure that the elections are successful either way.
And it's so interesting too, because I mean, once again, these are extremely local races. We have been speaking on them for a little over an hour. People at home, if the issues matter at home, they're watching them. But this is not a gubernatorial race right now. This is not a senator's race, but those races are coming. Those campaigns are watching, and it's going to be really interesting to see how we come out in 2026. And we thank you both so much for spending the last hour here with us.
We appreciate you guys as always. Let's leave it here. One of the things we've been talking about is all of the elections that we have seen, Faith, happening. It's become, I mean, it's in my social media comments. People say, oh my goodness, we've got another thing to vote on. But you heard it all night here. If you live in a state like Georgia, you've got a lot to vote on, and your vote really, really matters. You see these tight margins.
11 votes for
11
one race.
votes in some of them.
Wow.
And you know what? We've had some pretty famously close races in the past, and maybe in 2026 as well. We're going to continue to track the results all night here. If you want to see runoff results coming in, they're going to be on 11alive.com and on the news at 11, coming up in just about 2 hours.
And we will be talking about all of these races this Sunday at 11 on the Georgia Vote on 11 Alive. We hope we will see you there. Have a great night, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us.